Welcome to the channel and welcome to Banter in the Box episode 7 game week 2 review. I hope you all enjoyed the special bonus edition you got in midweek where I took you through the FFFL stats that go out every week, explained how they all worked. So none of you should have any more questions about the stats. If you do, that's fine, but hopefully you're all a little bit clearer. But we're back to the normal format of Banter in the Box in that it contains banter in the box style banter. And what a second week of Banter in the Box it was. This week's video, we're going to do the league table highlights. I'll tell you those people that are excelling and those people that aren't doing quite so well. We've got a new addition to the Wall of Shame that I will share. The quote of the week. I'll share the latest manager of the season table, and I will set this week's manager of the season quiz question. It's been a bumper week in the Family Fantasy Football League. 5 managers have made transfers already. Is that panicking too early, or is that just good management? I suggest it's the latter, because I was one of those 5 managers that made a transfer. It would have been 6, but one particular manager got their transfer wrong. But 5 managers in a single week, and as early as week 2, was a little bit of a surprise. So, league table, here's how the bottom of the table is shaping up. Pez United spent a second consecutive week at the bottom of the table despite setting a personal highest weekly total. Loads of managers set personal highest weekly totals for the season in game week 2. Clockhouse Rangers manager George Moody dropped 4 places into the relegation zone, down to 27th. This is George's 25th season in the Family Fantasy Football League, and George has never ever been as low as 27th in the league. He has won a wooden spoon in the past, but that was in a season when there were less than 28 managers in the league, because it used to be only 24 managers were allowed in the league. So George, since we moved to 28 managers in the league, George has never ever been as low as 27th. It's a new low for George, and I remember him from the Predictor Challenge. Too late to enter the Predictor Challenge now. If you haven't entered, you've left it too late. 11 managers did enter this season's Predictor Challenge, and one of those predictions was that George Moody would win the wooden spoon. I can't remember who predicted him. Diane Maloney, more on Di later. No happy endings, fell a massive 13 places. Di was the biggest faller this week. Obviously this is Di's debut season, so 26th is the lowest position Di has occupied. She was the lowest scorer this week, just 16 points. And making up the relegation zone in 25th place, Never the Boys, fell a massive 11 places. Jack finding his level. 25th was where he actually finished last season, so he's in familiar territory. 23rd place, returning manager Nicholas Anelka got a highest weekly total to climb 4 places. That's the highest position Nicola Irvin has occupied in the Family Fantasy Football League since the 3rd of January 2019. It's been a while since Nicola's been that high. Things looking good. And another debut manager, Ray Poulter, AFC Raza. Ray dropped a massive 8 places as the reality of the Family Fantasy Football League starts to sink in. And again, being a debut manager, that is the lowest position Ray has ever occupied. 18th place, Dustbin Dynamos. Bad week for John Tustin. He fell a massive 9 places. The lowest position that John has occupied since the 5th of March this year. John also finding his level and making up the bottom half of the table. Returning manager George Irvine, who's got the best team name possibly ever, Her Majesty's Secret Cervix. George climbed 2 places on the back of a personal highest weekly total, and that's the highest position George has occupied since June 2005. Over 15 years since George Irvine has been as high as 15th in the table, and he's actually never ever been higher than 15th in the table. He might finish, but he might be in the top half for the first time in his history. So that's the top half of the table. And for those of you, I did explain it in the bonus video in midweek, but for those of you wondering why the Appleys United's team is highlighted red, that's because as a result of a player transferring between Premier League clubs this week, James's team is now invalid. It was valid when the season started, it's now invalid because he has 2 Liverpool players in his team, and Liverpool are not James's nominated club. So as per the rules, James's next transfer will have to be to remove one of those 2 Liverpool players. He doesn't have to make a transfer all season if he doesn't want to, but if he does want to make a transfer, his first transfer is going to have to remove one of those 2 Liverpool players, and he's highlighted in red just so I don't forget. That's the bottom half of the table. Top half of the table, Napoli dropped a massive 10 places to 13th. Again, Lee finding his level. That's where he finished last season. In 12th place, the Creed Bratton Society climbed a massive 10 places on the back of a personal highest weekly total for Jordan. And 12th, funnily enough, is where Jordan finished last season. So everyone's kind of finding their level in the second week in the season. 8th place, Sashamas FC, despite entering an invalid team and having it made valid for him, Wayne is still making a good fist of it. Made a transfer this week because he had plenty of money in the bank after his invalid team was made valid. And Wayne climbed 2 places on the back of a personal highest weekly total. That's the highest position Wayne has occupied since the 10th of October last year. So good stuff, Wayne. Neil Hatch climbed a massive 8 places to 7th on the back of a highest weekly total. Well done, Neil. And in 6th place, Nicky Saunders jumped a massive 14 places up to 6th on the back of a personal highest weekly total for Nicky as well. 4th place, Benny United dropped 2 places, the lowest position Benny has occupied since the 26th of September 2019. Bad times for Mark. And in 3rd place, Ted and Sam Juniors climbing up 3 places. Good stuff, Mr. Sands, on the back of a personal highest weekly total. 2nd place, Sarah Simons, the current FFFL Cup holder. She won the Cup in her debut season, and Sarah got this week's weekly win. She also set the current highest weekly total of the season with a massive 69 points. Funnily enough, I understand that's Sarah's favourite number, and that is the highest position Sarah has ever occupied. She was the biggest climber, going up 16 places. Never been as high as 2nd in the table before. Well done, Sarah. But Alexi Lagos got a personal highest weekly total himself to retain top spot. Already amassed over 100 points, 104 points, and Alexi, despite leading the table last season, was one of those 5 managers that made a transfer, so he would have been 16 points clear, but he decided, despite leading the table, that his team still needed strengthening, so he was one of those 5 managers that made a transfer. So that is your league table review. Wall of Shame, we already knew Mark Benwell, Wayne Robinson, Mops Hoxby and James Appley were on the Wall of Shame, all for entering invalid teams. Jordan Williams was already on the Wall of Shame because he tried to cheat at the start of the season. Outrageous. But in the top left there, that is debut manager Diane Maloney, who this week entered the Wall of Shame because Di tried to make a transfer, but the transfer was invalid. Di selected a player that already belonged to another Family Fantasy Football League manager. So the transfer was null and void. For some reason, Di decided not to try to enter a correct transfer. Maybe she's given up, I don't know. But Di makes the wall of shame. She is a debut manager. It is her first season. Probably I should have got easy on her, but hey, this is Banter in the Box. I don't go easy on anybody. And that photo of Di, just to give you some background, actually, origin of Di's team name, No Happy Endings, for those of you that don't know Di. No Happy Endings, the origin of Di's team name is that Di is the only professional masseuse in the Family Fantasy Football League, and No Happy Endings is inspired by the fact that Di is actually an erotic masseuse. I don't know what they are, but she's an erotic masseuse, and her unique selling point is that she provides no happy endings. Business apparently isn't doing that well. Like I say, I don't know anything about masseuring, so I couldn't comment. And I wanted to talk to you about that photo, because I got that photo, as I do from all of the photos from your Facebook pages. I got that photo from Di's Facebook page, but I was curious about it, so I wanted to see what you think, because here, anyway, that is the current wall of shame as it stands. But going back to Di's photo, I wanted to get your opinion on it, because this is the full photo that I cropped, the photo that appeared on the wall of shame from, and this was Di posted a before and after picture, as you can see there, on her Facebook page. And I when I came across that photo, I don't know about you guys, but I looked at it and I thought, well, before and after what? I couldn't really tell much difference between the two photos. So I was curious, so I phoned up Di to find out what she was testing in that before and after experiment. And like most riddles, the answer was actually quite simple. The photo on the left is before Di woke up, and the one on the right is after Di woke up. And she thought she'd post it on Facebook, which is perfectly fine. So that answered that. Quote of the week. Lots of quotes flying about, as always, on the Family Fantasy Football League Facebook group. Keep them coming. There was some what seemed to be outrageous fishing for Manager of the Season points this week, I have to say. Creed Bratton Society sent me a message praising the bonus video that I did in the week, which was nice. And Neil Hatch also commented on that on the Facebook group on the back of that bonus Banter in the Box video, saying how much he enjoyed it, which again was nice. But I wondered whether they were simply fishing for Manager of the Season points. But there was one particular update during the week, which was one of the reasons why I did the bonus video during the week, where I asked if anyone was viewing the Family Fantasy Football League stats on an iPhone, because, and I put on the Facebook post, there's a bloke in the league that's struggling. Now, as it was, that individual was Darren Ravel, who was struggling. Thames Ironworks FC manager Darren Ravel, who was struggling to view the stats on his iPhone. I don't have an iPhone, so I couldn't help him. Turns out he wasn't the only old man in the league that was struggling with the technology. Sashamas FC manager Wayne Robinson also doesn't do technology. I don't know what he's using, but he says when he views the stats, he gets the player stats, he gets 29 pages. But anyway, so I asked for help, and rather than anyone offering any kind of help, which was fine, there seemed to be a great ensuing of speculation as to who the bloke was. And there was one particular quote from the Big Knobs manager, Simon Hoxby, very small hands, and he sent in a quote suggesting that The bloke I was referring to was Lyndon's Lovely's manager Joe Hoxby, and he said, "Is it Joe because of her man feet?" Laugh out loud. Those of you that have been in the Family Fantasy Football League for a while, or indeed have ever seen Joe's feet before she's waxed them, Joe does have exceptionally hairy feet. So it's a bit of a cheap shot, but it was good banter and kind of funny, so I felt it deserved the quote of the week. So well done, Simon, you get a manager of the season point. Which brings me on to the manager of the season table, because nobody else scored any manager of the season points this week, because nobody got last week's who the fuck is that question right. So the current table looks like that. Simon climbing a place to go joint 6th, but still leading the way. The current manager of the season, Benny United manager Mark Benwell, and Napoli manager Lee Poulter, joint top with 5 points. So this was last week's who the fuck is that question, which still stands but is now worth 2 manager of the season points. Disappointingly, only one manager had a go last week, and that was Benny United manager Mark Benwell. He's desperate to win it. He thought that was a picture of Never the Boys manager Jack Hoxby. Sorry Mark, that was an incorrect answer, but hey, nobody else got it right. Nobody else even tried. So it's now worth 2 manager of the season points, so you can now have another guess, Mark. You can all have 1 guess per week. Get your guesses into me by Friday, because I now tend to be doing these videos on a Friday night, and if you get it right, it's worth 2 manager of the season points. As always, let me know if you have any requests for Banter in the Box content that you want me to do. Always interested in hearing suggestions, and that's just a reminder so that nobody forgets and no one can say, "Oh, I didn't know it was then, oh, I've booked something up, blah 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 blah." The FFFL Presentation Awards, COVID permitting, will be on Saturday the 5th of June at FFL HQ. So until next week, have a good week, keep safe, and I will speak to you all soon. Bye bye.